He just completely manipulated the Dallas Mavericks. As following the Luka Doncic trade, some shocking new details have just been revealed that has Lakers fans fired up, but that has fans around the NBA confused as to how Rob Pelinka was able to pull this off. As some of these details regarding this trade are things we have never ever seen before. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, if you're part of the 83% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Lakers content. We just hit 7,000 subscribers. So thank you guys for your continued support there. We're on the road to 10,000. We're getting closer and closer each day. So if you're enjoying the daily Lakers content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. But ladies and gentlemen, some new reports have dropped that is quite frankly jaw-dropping. There is a lot of news coming out, and we knew something crazy was brewing behind the scenes as to how this trade happened, how no one knew it was happening, nothing got leaked, there were no rumors, no reports, and Rob Pelinka completely manipulated Nico Harrison in order to get this deal done, and quite frankly, it's absolutely ridiculous. And there's a bunch of screenshots to go over, so we're going to go over them kind of one by one here, but to kind of give an overview. So this was a more recent report from Bill Simmons. Rob Pelinka convinced Nico not to shop Luka Doncic to any other NBA teams, which in itself is an absolutely crazy premise and a crazy thing to do. But this will make a lot more sense as we go over some of these other reports where Rob Pelinka was able to convince Nico Harrison not to shop Luka with other teams because of how deep in they were already with their talks regarding Luka Doncic. And you can see this here. Luka Doncic trade would have included Dalton, Knecht, and more first-round picks, but Rob Pelinka was able to convince Nico Harrison that that was too much due to his conditioning concerns, which in a nutshell, is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, originally, according to multiple reports, the Mavericks were going to ask and were demanding Dalton, Knecht, multiple first-round picks in a deal alongside Anthony Davis in order to get Luka Doncic. And I mean, if we would have let's say we saw the notification on Saturday night that the trade was Dalton, Knecht, both their first round picks, and Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic, that would have been a lot more interesting. And some fans, I'm sure, would prefer Max Christie over Luka Doncic or vice versa. But the fact that Rob Pelinka was able to manipulate Nico Harrison by convincing Nico that there was too many concerns about conditioning, we're hearing reports about drinking, all these different things, in order to get Luka Doncic for a lot less is absolutely ridiculous, but also, quite frankly, it's hilarious. You can see this here. Rob Pelinka told the Mavericks that Luka's conditioning is a real problem, which allowed him to keep Knecht and the other picks out of the deal. And the picks we're mainly talking about here are both the first-round picks. He gave up the 2029 first, but not the 2031. And it was very important now that Rob Pelinka kept this 2031 first-round pick for a variety of reasons, but number one, simply because of the fact that they need to add a center. They need to do this for more trades. But the fact that Dalton Knecht was going to be involved in this deal originally is not only hilarious, but it goes to show the mind games that Rob Pelinka was able to play with Nico Harrison to convince him that, yeah, his conditioning is really bad. He has problems behind the scenes, and he needs to be able to, his conditioning problems behind the scenes, he needs to be able to, his conditioning is a very big issue. So we're not going to be able to give you two firsts and Dalton Knecht for arguably the best player in his prime in basketball. It blows my mind that this was even a conversation. You can see this here. The Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis trade originally included multiple firsts and Dalton Knecht. A deal got whittled down, and I think Rob Pelinka was able to convince the Mavericks that Luka is a lot of risk, his drinking, his weight problem. And I mean, the fact that Rob Pelinka was able to convince Nico Harrison, who knows more about Luka Doncic than anybody. Now, I'm sure, and according to a lot of these reports, Nico Harrison was coming out and saying that, the conditioning was a big problem. We're seeing reports on that, all these different things, the drinking, whatever it ends up being. What matters most is that Rob Pelinka was able to keep Dalton Knecht and the other first-round pick out of the deal and was able to convince and manipulate Nico Harrison into believing that, yeah, his conditioning is going to be a problem. This is going to be a huge deal going forward. And it kind of, it kind of leads back to this. This dropped today from Mark Stein. The Mavericks reportedly over Luka Doncic. With Doncic, meanwhile, one phrase you keep hearing basically is that the Mavericks are over him. Dallas has likewise said to have cooled on its star insistence on hiring his own team of training experts, even though it was done at his own expense, to handle the bulk of his medical and nutritional needs separate from the club. I mean, Rob Pelinka was just able to pull a master class off here. It was an absolute masterclass. You can see this here, and we'll dive into that in a minute. But we're also seeing reports the fact that the Lakers were able to even get out of this without giving up their first round picks is ridiculous in its own right. The fact that, and again, nobody knew that the Lakers were and the Mavericks were going to be making a trade. And then a new report recently came out illustrating that this whole trade was done behind the scenes, and that, the Jazz didn't even know that there's a bunch of, the Jazz didn't even know, and Danny Ainge didn't even know that the Lakers, that they were helping facilitate a Doncic trade. You can see this here. The Lakers were able to complete a trade without giving up both first because it was a secret, and they couldn't ask Luka's agent if he'd want to re-sign. The heist of a century. The Lakers' logic, according to league sources, was that parting with both of their first rounders would be too risky. Doncic's contract can expire in 2026, and they couldn't know his interest in re-signing, and they had no chance to find out before pulling off an exchange that shook the NBA. The Lakers could not talk to Doncic's agent about the deadline because both sides, Dallas and LA, about the trade, wanted to keep negotiations a secret. Mentioning the behind-the-scenes details to agents would put the information at risk of becoming public, which the Mavericks especially thought would be too flammable. If a trade didn't materialize, then they believed the prospect of being left with a disgruntled franchise centerpiece could be disastrous. Rob Pelinka was able to, work a trade here while also keeping the trade a secret, and both sides wanted the trade to be a secret. Let's not forget that. They wanted it to be a secret. And because of that, the Mavericks couldn't just turn around and back out of the deal, because then you'd have Luka Doncic saying, why were you shopping me in the first place? I'm going to demand a trade, and then all leverage would have been gone. So it got to the point where the Lakers had so much leverage in a trade for Luka Doncic, which is unbelievable in its own right, that it got to this point. And there was also a report that dropped that Danny Ainge, of course the GM of the Jazz, did not know that he was helping facilitate the deal. He knew, of course, that he was facilitating a three-way trade between the Lakers and the Mavericks, and that he was getting Jalen Hood-Schifino and 2 second-round picks. But he did not know that that deal was going to get the Lakers Luka Doncic, and by the time that he found out about that, it was too late. So Rob Pelinka did some more manipulation there in order to help the salaries work out, because we know Danny Ainge, former GM of the Boston Celtics, he hates the Lakers, right? He wouldn't want to give the Lakers any, I can guarantee you if he had known this, Danny Ainge would not have wanted to give the Lakers Luka Doncic or even help facilitate Luka Doncic to the Lakers. It is unbelievable. At the end of the day, Rob Pelinka absolutely pulled off the heist of a century, but he also manipulated Nico Harrison into believing that he was very, out of shape, and that there was a ton of risk with this move. You should trade him now before he demands a trade. And this comes out basically saying that it was too late for Nico to even back out, because by the time they got this in-depth with talks, if they would have pulled out, Doncic would have realized, hey, they were shopping you around, and Doncic probably would have requested a trade, and then all the leverage would have been gone. So a masterclass by Rob Pelinka, absolutely ridiculous by the Dallas Mavericks. And at the end of the day, the Lakers for now are winners. They kept their first-round pick. They kept Dalton Knecht, which they can now use to flip in order to get a couple of other centers, role players, etc. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. It is ridiculous. Let us know. Thanks. Cheers.